Hi, Shivani. We'll be starting the class in another 2 to 3 minutes. I'm just waiting for everyone to join, whoever would join us. So I'm just waiting for 2 or 3 more minutes, then we'll start the class.
Power on, Harry. Line in, mode.
How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Good?
Yeah.
You attended yesterday also, right? You were there?
No, I couldn't.
Okay. Okay, great. Great. So I'm just waiting for everyone to join. So we'll start in 2 or 3 more minutes.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah.
Yesterday there were like people.
Yeah. So we covered what philosophy is. So today we'll be covering what yoga is.
Okay. So is this going to be very different from what the video lectures are like, which are provided with the course package? So
Okay, so we'll be going concept wise. So it's not exactly going to be different, but we're just taking live classes so that one, we're able to connect with you better, and two, if you have any doubts, you can like clarify them over here with us. Because pre-recorded videos are like you can watch them according to your pace and understanding, yeah. And as per your own schedule, you can align them. But live classes are like fixed.
okay.
So mostly same topics, yeah. Okay. नमस्ते नमस्ते जागृति जी कैसे हैं good all good yeah okay I think we'll start the class and if somebody joins in between that's okay yeah okay so back your neck straight close your eyes gently close your eyes and just watch your breath. And just bring your mind to the present. Taking a few moments to detach from the past and the worries of the future and come back to the breath. And now begin to elongate your breath. Inhale deeply and exhale deeply. Inhale, exhale, inhale, and exhale. We will be chanting Om 3 times, followed by 3 Shanti. To take one deep breath for Om. Om. Inhale for Om. Om. Inhale. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Join both the palms together in front of your chest. And now rub both the palms together. Placing them over the eyes. And slowly, while blinking and looking at your palms, you can open up your eyes. And namaste to everyone. Okay. So yesterday we discussed about philosophy. What philosophy is, because you're studying what yoga philosophy. So we need to understand yoga and philosophy separately. So yesterday we covered what philosophy was. Now today we're going to take a deeper look into what yoga is. So as I said yesterday, yoga has been derived from the root word yuj, which means to unite, yoke, or join together. So I'll be writing these things down because today we'll have to write certain things. So okay. So now from this basic meaning, we understand that something is being joined. And yesterday we discussed that yes, joining in a very spiritual term, the individual consciousness when it joins or unites with the universal consciousness, the Jivatma joins with the Paramatma. So that entire process, and when that joining happens, this part is called yoga. Okay. So to have a deeper look at what yoga is, first we will break it down according to, there was a grammatical breakdown that was given a few years ago by Maharishi Panini ji. He wrote a text on grammar, And in that, he to make everyone understand what yoga was, he broke down yoga into 3 different words. So wait. So our first word is yuj. Yuj Sanyamne, which means to control. Right? Yuj Sanyamne. Okay. The second one was yuj Samadhi. Yuj Samadhi, which means Samadhi. Okay. And after that, we have Yujur Yoga, which means union. Okay. So we have all 3 of them written. You got all 3 of them in the chat box. So Yuj Sanyamne, Yuj Samadhu, and Yujur Yoga. Okay. So to define the entire process of yoga, he said that first there is control or restraint. Okay. So right now my mind is running in many directions. Okay. So when I come into the process of yoga, what happens is I try to concentrate my mind. I try to restrain this mind. I tell it that now you don't have to run in 10 directions. Now I'll give you one direction to run it. I'm not taking away that one direction for now, but for now you need to narrow down your area of focus. Okay. So that point where you are restraining your entire consciousness now to that one particular direction, that is Yuj Sanyamne. Okay. After that, he said that this is not the holistic meaning of yoga. Okay. Now we start with restraint, but we move ahead and go to what? Samadhi. So once I have narrowed my mind down to that one object, then what will start happening is initially I will make an effort to stay with that object. Then after a particular point of time, it will become effortless. Okay. And after that point, there would come another point in that same flow, which is called Samadhi, or where only my object will remain. There will be no me, there will be no process. Yes. So I'm not there anymore. The process has also ceased to exist, but the object, the awareness of the object is there. So that particular point is called Samadhi. Okay. So he said that after you have restrained your mind, then you will enter the next stage of yoga where you will experience the Samadhi point. Yes. Okay. And after Samadhi, then he said that Samadhi doesn't define what yoga is. Okay. So after Samadhi, something has to happen for yoga to be holistic. So what will happen is Yujur Yoga. Then you will experience yoga, when you will experience the union with the universal consciousness. So yoga cannot, according to him, yoga had all these 3 meanings and all these 3 aspects somewhere give it a holistic understanding. It cannot be just restrained to a part where you are controlling. Neither can it be restrained to a part where you are just aware of the object. it has to include all of these three things. That will give you a holistic picture of what yoga is. Okay? Any doubts till now?
Can you tell the name again, like who divided into these three parts?
Yeah, Maharishi Panini. I will write the name. Okay, great. So now we understand, at least we got a broader picture of what yoga is. But now we'll see that there are certain texts in yoga which are considered to be very important. So what is the definition of yoga given in those texts? So one, we'll be covering the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and second important text is the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so we will see what the meaning of yoga is given in like these texts. Okay, so if you are even a little bit familiar with yoga, then you would have heard of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, that's for sure. And if you're a little bit more familiar, then Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha is something that I'm sure that you would have heard uh, from anyone and everyone who is in yoga. So, but it's very easily said, but it is hard to understand the sutra. So, Maharishi Patanjali ji, he gave his text in the form of sutra. So, sutra is basically coded language. Shlok, we can still understand. It was the easier version of sutra, the shlokas. Okay, but sutra was really hard to understand at that point of time. That is why you will find that a lot of commentaries are given on Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So everybody has their own way of interpreting what he was trying to say. Yeah, but he knew what he was saying, so he just gave it in that coded form and in a very precise form. He was just like, don't do this or that, just come over here, I will tell you what you have to do. And he gave 195 sutras in one go and told the entire process of yoga. So when he starts the sutra, he initially wants to make sure that you understand what yoga is, what process you're entering. After that, I will give you the way. First, let me at least tell you what you are doing. Now, I will tell you do this, do that, but I don't tell you what is the aim or goal of that thing. So you won't be very much convinced, or you won't be able to understand why you're doing something. So he understood the necessity of explaining the thing before giving the process of achieving that final goal. Okay. So he said yoga chitta vritti nirodha. I will write this down also. This will be 1.2. Okay. Okay, it's from the first chapter, the second sutra. Written? Okay. I'll go ahead. Okay, you're writing. Take your time, take your time. Okay. So he said, what is yoga? He wants to make us understand that. So yoga is, what is it? The cessation of the mental modification. So this sutra, the translation for this sutra is cessation of mental modifications is yoga. Okay. So mental modifications, the word for mental modifications that he gave was vritti. Okay. And where is this vritti being formed? In the chitta. Okay. I'll be breaking down all of these words and explaining these. But initially, you need to understand what is happening. So the vritti is being formed in the chitta. And when we are able to see, when this entire process of this mental modification happening in the chitta ceases to exist, that point is called yoga. Okay. So now we need to understand, first we'll understand what chit is. Okay. So chit is not your mind. Okay. Chit includes three parts. Again, it's divided in three parts. So it includes your man, buddhi, and ahankar. So we can understand chit as the mental field. Okay. Which includes these three parts. Manas or mind, oh sorry, mind, buddhi or intellect, okay. Take your time to write.
इंटेलेक्ट को बुद्धि कहेंगे ना?
हाँ जी. Okay, so it's the entire mental field that is included when we are talking of chit. So, yeah.
So, like, is chitta very different from consciousness?
It's very different. Okay, yes, because chit is a part of, so yoga gets its background, like its theory foundation from Sankhya. So what Sankhya says is that there is consciousness, which is Purush, and Prakriti, which is the Jad part. Okay. There is a further subdivision of Prakriti in which Man, Buddhi, Ahankar come in. Okay. So according to Sankhya, there are 25 elements that we are made up of. Okay. So the consciousness is separate, and then the Prakriti, the Purush is separate, and Prakriti is separate. And what happens is the Prakriti goes into further evolution and divides. So it divides into the parts of Chitta, and then you have Karmendriya, Gyanendriya, all of these things. So that will come under your Sankhya philosophy. Okay. What we are doing is yoga philosophy, and both of them are very strongly connected. So chit is not the individual consciousness. No, that is separate. Okay. So the man, buddhi, and ahankar. So we need to understand all three of these parts also separately. So man is that part of the chit or your mental field, which is basically in contact with the external world. Okay. Now something outside is happening. Maybe I go downstairs and there is a garden. Okay. And I see flowers. So what is happening over here is my mind is perceiving what I'm seeing. Okay. So mind is that part which is connected with the external world, and it is receiving all of that information. Okay. Then what happens is, now this information is received in the mind. Now it will pass it on to the buddhi or intellect, which will decide what kind of impression I will form when I see that particular object. So, for example, continuing with this one only, I saw a flower. Now, I really like purple, and the flower was purple. Okay, so my buddhi will see that, okay, you're seeing a color that you are liking, and now it will give a reaction to that, and it will tell me if I have to like that thing or dislike that thing. Okay, so we will either go into rag or dvesh. So it will tell me, okay, now this is verified, you like purple and the flower is purple, so you like the flower. So it is giving that decision of how the reaction is going to be. Okay, after that comes in the third part, which is the ego. Now, as per yoga, we are not this body. You must have heard of this. We are not this mind. Yeah, we are just, we just have it for this particular point of time that we are over here, that the soul is in this body, and then that energy will be passed on, and all of those things are generally talked about. So why is it that despite having this in my knowledge, I am not able to actually understand it? Is because there is this component called ego which is working, or the I feeling. So I'm associating this with myself. So I like purple. Okay. I like this flower. Yeah. So this I feeling, which attaches everything that I'm experiencing and mistakes it for me. I am not, what can we say? It's the thing that I'm perceiving. Yeah. It's okay. I'm perceiving it. It's just an experience. But to think that it is my experience is where the ignorance comes in, because the Purush part in our being is separate from the Prakriti part. Okay, so whatever I'm experiencing, yes, it is happening at this point of time, but I'm not that experienced, right? But what Ahankar does is it mixes both of them. So now I'll take an example for this. I have a very good friend, okay, and I'm about to go and meet her, okay. So when I go and meet that friend, what will happen is my mind will see that friend, okay, and my mind will be like, okay, this is my friend. Now, because it is my friend and I am very close to her, the buddhi will decide, okay, this is a close friend, so now you need to feel good about it. And the ahankar will say, what? My friend. Yeah. And what will happen is now the soul is separate from it. The soul is just observing. But because of ahankar, what is happening is this entire experience, it thinks that it is happening to it, to the soul. It's not happening to the soul. The soul is just observing everything that is happening around it. Everything is eventually presented to the soul. Okay? But there is no change in the soul. The change is in the buddhi, the man, the ahankar. All of these things change. But the soul remains constant and it is just in an observing position. But when the buddhi presents this to the soul, then what happens? Because of ego, the soul somewhere mistakes that this is happening to me. So what is causing that thing is the ego, actually. Okay. And what yoga does is it removes this ignorance, that you identify yourself, your experiences with who you truly are, with your true nature. Your true nature is ever existing, and it is not altered by anything that is happening around you. But we mistake that. So when you go into the process of yoga, you go into that process where you realize, okay, I am separate and this experience is separate. So when a thought comes and overwhelms you, there is some awareness that comes in that, okay, this is just a thought and it will eventually go away. So that process, so what Patanjali ji is saying is, when the chit and the impression that is formed in the chit, this ceases to exist and you're actually able to see the clear picture. That process is called yoga. So chit, is chit a little bit clear to you right now? Chit, what chit is actually? It is all these three things that are happening together simultaneously. Most of us don't even realize that all of these things are not separate. So what happens is you see something and you instantly react. So you don't recognize when that thing is going from your mind to the buddhi and a decision is being made and then a reaction is coming and then you're reacting in that way. Yeah. So this thing, entire process goes on, but it is very quick once again. So it takes a while for us to break this down into the various parts that the information is being transferred to. Okay. So next part is our vritti. So now he says that vritti, we have to seize the vritti. But what is this vritti? So vritti has been derived from the root word vrit, okay, which means circular.
आपने जो अभी एग्जाम्पल दिया ना वो फ्रेंड वाला, तो उसमें आपने क्या बताया कि आपके बुद्धि से मतलब बुद्धि काम कर रही है वहां?
तीनों काम कर रहे हैं. All three are working. So first thing is that I'm perceiving, and the connection between the external and internal world is what? The mind. Okay, manas. Jisko what we said was manas. So I'm perceiving that, I'm seeing that person, and there is a connection which is perceiving that. So the mind is perceiving that. Then what is happening is the mind is passing it on to the buddhi to make a judgment on that. Okay. So then my mind is deciding, okay, this is a friend and it's a good friend. So what do I feel? I feel good about it. So that is when the buddhi comes into function, when it gives this reaction that, okay, now this is the way in which you have to react to this particular object. Now I say something to you in a very different language, and it might be a compliment or an abuse, but you will not understand it. So will your buddhi be able to react to what the consequence of that thing should be? Like right now, if I'm talking to you and you're understanding this language, it is very easy for your buddhi to give a decision on if you like it or if you don't like it. Yeah. But if there is something you do not recognize, that when that thing happens, then your buddhi, what I'm trying to explain is that your buddhi is also functioning on a particular basis. Because it's able to understand something, it gives a decision. So if there is something you do not recognize, and it might be something good or bad, your buddhi will not be able to give a decision on that thing, because you're not recognizing that language or that unfamiliar thing. So all three of them come into play together. That is what happens when you interact with anything in your life. You will not recognize when you jump from one to the other. Okay, that is clear? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So
सॉरी, इसमें सजगता कहाँ रखनी है हमें?
see, so your awareness is generally, when you go into meditation, your awareness is one object. Okay, you choose that object according to the meditation technique you are adopting. So awareness kahan par aayegi? Where whatever object you have been given by your guru or the meditation technique that you are following. So you're learning multiple meditation techniques. One of them will absolutely click with you. Like you will be like, okay, this is for me. Yeah, because so many methods are being taught. So the object that that meditation technique is asking you to keep focus on, that will be your awareness, your point of awareness. Okay, you'll bring your mind back to that thing again and again. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, okay, so vritti. So vrit is the root word and it means circular. So what happens is when there is a decision given by the buddhi on a particular object that you are perceiving, then there is an impression that is formed in your mind. That impression is generally what? Circular. So that is why the impression has been given the name vritti, because it was observed that it was coming in a circular pattern. So you can observe this in your day-to-day life also. So what happens is generally when we are thinking of something, then we go in a loop about it, right? We always use the word loop. I'm going constantly in a loop about this thing that I'm thinking about. So understand that that impression that is being formed is a vritti at that point of time. Okay. And then he moves to the next word, which is nirod or cessation. So once you are able to calm the water, okay. So right now what is happening is there is a river, okay, and it is flowing. So there are a lot of waves on that river. So when I see the moon in that river, there is a distorted image. Yeah. So once I'm able to calm the water down, that is when I will be able to see the image properly. Yeah. So he says that once you are able to seize all the vrittis or the circular motions or the impressions that are being formed in your chit, okay, that point where there is stability is called yoga. Okay. So any doubts till now? Because this is a very heavy sutra actually. If you think about it, it's very, very heavy. Yeah. Anything on your mind that you would want to ask? No? Okay, great. So once again, I would, yeah.
So we are going to see like how are we going to calm this down, like the vritti. We'll see.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, so I will be teaching you the theory in yoga philosophy, but your meditation classes, asana, pranayama, all of these are parts, we can say, they are a part of the process which will help you to reach to that point of cessation. Okay?
जो
Okay.
वृत्तियां है तो उसको अभी हम आगे भी डिफाइन करेंगे ना, मतलब उसके भेद वगैरह कि इतना ही है.
No, we will discuss what are the various types of vrittis. We will be talking about this. Yeah. Okay. So I'll move to the next one which we have to discuss, which is Samatvam Yoga Uchyate.
इन सबके जो बाइफर्केशंस है वो फिर आगे आएंगे.
Of the vrittis,
हाँ.
yeah, I will be telling you about, when I'll be discussing about the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, I'll be telling you about Ashtanga Yoga. So in that Ashtanga Yoga, one thing, oh, that is separate, okay. I will be talking about vrittis separately also.
मुझे ना वृत्ति में काफी कुछ क्लियर करना है, बहुत सारे डाउट्स है मुझे, इसलिए.
Okay, okay. So we will be taking that up. Okay. Samatvam Yoga Uchyate.
okay, so one thing, as you said, like cessation of mental modification. So chitta vritti both together forms the mental modification thing. Like I'm just trying to translate it. So
Sorry, can you go once again?
so in yoga chitta vritti nirodha, when we translated it to cessation of mental modification, so here chitta and vritti both together form the mental modification, is it?
No, vritti is the mental modification, and chitta is the place where this mental modification is being formed. Okay, so it needs a place also to exist, right? So that space is being provided by your chitta.
Okay.
Okay. This is Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So, Samatvam Yoguchyate. So, a very famous yoga text is what? The Bhagavad Gita. So, when we'll be discussing about Bhagavad Gita in our classes, in the future classes, I will tell you the whole story and background of how we reach Bhagavad Gita and what it is about. But for now, we just need to understand that there was a battle that was going on, okay? And on one side, Arjun and Krishna were standing, and out of those people, Arjun was the one who had to go and fight against his own family and his own guru. So when you see your own family standing on the other side of the battle or the war, and the guru and student relationship is one that cannot be expressed in words. It is that deep. So when you see those people, the people you love on the other side of the war, there is of course a dilemma, uh, that how you need to function in that case. Because of course I wouldn't want to kill my own family members or my guru. But Arjun was in this conflict, in this dilemma at that point of time, and he did not want to kill his family. So that is when Krishna came in and he tried to make him understand that he has to do this thing because it is his duty. Okay. So when he is explaining this portion, like during the war, this portion, when he is explaining all of this to Arjun, is called the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. Now the Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters in total. And in the second chapter, Krishna ji defines yoga by saying that Samatvam Yoguchyate, or equanimity is yoga. Okay. So what do we mean by this equanimity or balance? So he says that when you are neither very happy nor too sad when something happens, okay, on a physical level also, on a mental level also, you are not affected by the sorrows and pains, and neither are you affected by too much affection, because it comes with a lot of attachment. So that neutral state where you are balanced, your mind is now balanced, that point is called samta. Okay. So he said samatvam yoguchyate. When your mind is unaffected by all of these things, rag and dvesh are the two reactions that we generally give to anything that comes in our life. Okay. If I like something, I will generate rag towards that thing. And if I dislike something, I will again generate a reaction, which is dvesh. So both rag and dvesh are two sides of the same coin, we can say. If one is existing, the other one will exist. So if day is coming, then night will also come. Yeah. So that is the way in which we generally function in our day-to-day lives also. Either we give a positive reaction to something or we give a negative reaction to something. But the point where your mind is this stable and strong, now it is that much in control that you are unaffected by these things, by anything that comes your way, and you are neutral and you are balanced about that thing. So that point, he says, is called yoga. Okay. Then he gave another definition when we move ahead, which is called yoga karamsu Kaushalam 2.50. Okay. So then he moves ahead, and after one stroke only, he says that skillfulness in action is yoga. So what do we understand by this skillfulness? There are two parts to it. One thing is that whatever you're doing in your day-to-day life, you're fully concentrated and you're doing it with dedication. Okay. Now, I go outside and I'm supposed to do what? Clean the utensils in my house. Okay. And I go there and I'm just like, oh, now I have to clean the utensils. And then I put on music, and what I do, I'm cleaning the utensils. Okay, I'll make it a little bit more enjoyable for myself. I don't like cleaning utensils. Okay. So what is happening over here is I am not concentrating on one particular task. One thing is that. Okay. You have to do one task at one time, and you have to remain what? Connected with it. You have to be with it, and you have to do it with your full dedication. Now I'm listening to music. I really like this song, and that song comes up. And I'm cleaning the utensil, and I leave a few spots on that utensil because I'm so excited. My favorite song is playing that I forget that I have to clean it properly. Okay. And I'm just like, okay, that's fine. I'm enjoying. So what is happening over there? I'm not connected with my task and I'm not doing it properly. So you have to keep both these things in mind, that you are connected with what you're doing. One thing is you have to do one thing at a time. Then you're connected with it and you're doing it properly. One aspect is this, in which we mean that there should be skillfulness in action. The second part to it is that I'm not connected with the result of that action. Now I wash all the utensils while listening to music, being very happy that when I wash the utensils, everyone will appreciate me. Okay, today she went and she did this work. And it took me 1 hour. There were so many utensils. Okay. And after I come out of the kitchen, that 1 hour is so hot, sweating. And I come out and everybody is doing their own work. Nobody is concerned. Nobody even saw that I, cleaned the utensils and I have put in so much effort. And everybody is doing their own work and they just say, okay, she had to do that. It was her responsibility, so she had to do that. So why should we appreciate her? It's okay, it's day to day, day to day. And I come out and I am so sad. Why? Because when I was doing something, I attached some expectation. I was expecting some fruit out of doing that task. And when I did not get it, what happened was I went into sorrow or suffering. So he says that stay connected to whatever you're doing and don't be attached to the fruits of your action. So skillfulness in action would include both of these aspects when you are doing something. So when you do a particular action in your life skillfully, then that point, he says, is yoga. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, so when you say like your task was cleaning utensil and you don't like it, so don't you think like it depends a lot how you define your task? Let's say the same example, and if I say that my task is to like enjoy my work, so in that case, like listening to music while washing utensil would be fine, right? I mean, I just feel it is a matter of perspective how you define your task is, what your task is it?
So one thing is that I was doing two things at the same time when I was doing this. And according to him, we are only capable. I'm not saying we're incapable of doing two or three things at the same time, but the modern times that we are in, it is expected of us to do two or three things at the same time. The world doesn't move ahead if we don't give that. But if it was up to us, if you think, just give this a thought. If it was up to you, maybe you would prefer doing one thing at a time. Having two or three things together just jumbles your mind even more. So it doesn't, so it depends on what you are doing, yes, but you have to do that one thing properly. That is what has been, he has said that when you do that one thing properly, then you will see that you find enjoyment in that also. and you are doing it with a detached sense. So you're not doing it because you want to enjoy. That is not your aim. You're doing it because you have to do it. It is a part of your life. So that is what he said when he talked of detachment. Because when I'm looking for enjoyment when I'm doing something, that means that there is a sense of attachment over there. Yeah. I'm not doing it because I have to do that thing. Now I don't like cleaning utensils. So what I did was I picked up my headphones and made sure that there was music so that I could gain enjoyment out of something I don't enjoy. So both of these things are what? Either Rag or Dvesh. Once again, I'm going into duality when I'm doing that. Yeah. Okay. Any other doubts? No? Okay, I think you have a class at 12. So I'll close the session for today. Okay. So back and neck straight. Close your eyes. And just relax your mind. Give your mind the time to absorb all of this information. And now take one deep breath with me. Inhale deeply. And exhale deeply. Now inhale for Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Join both your palms together in front of your chest and just bow down. And remember any one incident from your past 24 hours that you are grateful for. Say a mental thank you. And now rub both your palms together. Place them over your eyes. Slowly, while blinking and looking at your palms, you can open up your eyes. And namaste to everyone. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow. And start maintaining a diary if you can.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one question. Like, what are the all other topics like you will cover in upcoming days?
Okay, so you're enrolled in 200 hours or 300 hours?
Like, I'm not enrolled in 200 hours, but I'm curious to know.
Okay, so we'll be covering the syllabus of 200 hours. Do you have that? Like, you can go on our website and see the syllabus of yoga philosophy. In 200 hours, we will be covering all of those topics.
Okay. Like in this month only, right?
Yes, in this month only.
Okay, thank you. It was a wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.